Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. I apologize for that little bit of silence. That's things can happen. So everyone, welcome into the Computer America Show. I'm happy that you could join us, and hey, I'm happy that you are here to spend the day with us. It is Wednesday, everyone. I hope that you're having a fantastic day and you are ready for Computer America. So today on the program, a full segment of computer and technology news. Our regular correspondent, who's normally here, that will be Darius Jarakshani. He unfortunately had to move and move time slots just for this month, and he will be on the program later this week on Friday. So mark your calendars, and hey, you can definitely check that out. So it'll be just us. We'll be doing computer and technology news, as I said before, and yeah, hey, we'll definitely have fun with it. So everyone, welcome into the show. I think that today we have about 15 or so articles. We're not going to be able to get through them all, and a lot of them are very interesting. So I'm happy to, I'm definitely happy to check this out. So, of course, computeramerica.com, we put up a couple new articles. If you'd like to check that out, we're working on a few reviews. Our next review that should be going up here shortly is the Lutron. Lutron and Cassetta by Lutron. We received a number of products from them. We've been testing them out, and we are ready to, publish the review. So that should be up later today. And, of course, we have articles. We just published one that, if you are interested, obviously there's a lot going on with Section 230. If you have not heard about 230, then it's essentially what allows social media sites to operate as they do. It has to do with the Internet Decency Act. It has to do with it has a little bit to do with DMCA. And, back in the day, it had the best of intentions. It was all about preventing the abuse and sending of illicit material to minors, and make sure that we can protect kids from the hordes of the internet. And now it has become something else entirely. It's a bit of a political. It's a bit of a political topic. It is something that the current administration has directed the Department of Justice to definitely look into. And don't get me wrong, this is how technology goes, especially when it comes to legislating technology. It's it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's something that you definitely have to work at. So I'm USB. There we go. Sorry about that. Just tried one more thing. And yeah, so it's something that you definitely have to work at. Legislation when it comes to technology is always evolving, and there you go. So everyone, with that being said, I want to thank you so much for tuning in once again. And why don't we go ahead and get started with computer and technology news, which, which we can't actually play the noise. So everyone, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into computer and technology news, and that is, of course, brought to you by Computer America. So here we go. And now our first story that we're going to do is nothing about Section 230. Don't worry, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. Our first story has to do with T-Mobile, and especially if you were in the southern part of the country. And yeah, T-Mobile, they have a lot of customers. They unfortunately had what I think in the industry is called a snafu. Back on Monday, way long ago, 2 days ago, T-Mobile, their services went down for about 12 hours. And according to T-Mobile, the problem did not come from a DDoS attack, as people were initially claiming. I believe that the reason for the DDoS attack were that people were looking into the data traffic patterns, and they saw a huge uptick in traffic, and they're like, oh, DDoS, bringing the whole network down. This is a problem. But they just released a statement today saying, or at least yesterday, saying what it really was. And turns out it was hardware, not software. So check this one out. On Monday, T-Mobile's voice and text messaging services were down all evening, with the outage stretching for over 12 hours. Now, the president of technology has given some explanation over what happened, and the company says it's doing what it says it's doing to keep it from happening again. So, contrary to reports on Twitter, and look, don't get me wrong, Twitter is a really good place to go for late breaking for late breaking or very early information, but it is not always correct information. So obviously the company didn't cite any DDoS attack or other nefarious behavior. Specifically, a fiber circuit owned by another provider somewhere in the southeastern US failed, and their redundant feature that were supposed to help manage the situation, those got messed up. And they said that that overwhelmed the capacity of their own network that handles voice over LTE calls. And as Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince pointed out that day, internet exchanges didn't show the increase in traffic that would have suggested a DDoS, revealing the boring explanation of what happened. Throwing down detector highlight reports from high population areas where T-Mobile customers live and reported the outages, along with customers for those carriers who couldn't get through to people on T-Mobile, and you get the storm of misinformation and confusion that surrounded the outage. Really, it goes to show, and it really highlights just how much we depend on useful information. And being a full 12 hours late, I feel like that was a little bit of a miscalculation. And, they could have gotten the information out there sooner over what really happened. I'm sure that even they themselves were surprised because, as they said, the whole situation managed to overwhelm the capacity of their own networks. I'm sure that, alarm bells were ringing in their own offices. So there you have it. Let's see. The question will remain to be answered are whether T-Mobile will do anything for the customers left without service for such a long period, and whether or not these answers will satisfy the FCC's investigation. So there you go. I'm trying to think of the best way to, if this were to happen again. I know that a lot of people were affected by this, and the question becomes, what is the best way to find good information? And Down Detector is certainly a really good one. That is still, everyday citizens, everyday consumers reporting outages and saying what it is that went wrong on their end. So it's not perfectly foolproof, but it's a step. There's that. Twitter, but maybe look for relevant hashtags. But obviously Twitter is full of people who like to figure it all out before the information's even out there, which is why they said DDoS attack. So the best way is probably Down Detector, and of course contacting your carrier if possible. I think that's in this case they probably weren't fielding that many calls because, hey, this affected everyone. So if you're a T-Mobile customer that had problems on Monday, they're saying hopefully, this won't happen again. There you go. So that was story number 1, and now story number 2. We're going to go ahead and continue on here. Let's talk about Apple for a second, and let's talk about Apple. Well, in regards to something that Apple probably doesn't want talked about. And they have almost an effective monopoly. They have a monopoly when it comes to apps running on iOS. If unlike Android, which you can download onto your phone, there's of course the Google repository, which is very, very open, but anyone can publish them. Whereas you have Apple, who if it doesn't meet their minimum standards, they have to take their cut before any of those sales or anything like that happens. It's a pretty messy situation that can happen. So Apple is back in the news because Apple's facing rage and insurrection, I don't know what that means, from developers over the commission it charges apps in the App Store. If you don't know, it's still 30%. Even Steam, back in the day when networking costs were at a premium, it was go to Steam or go to no one. In the interim, even Steam has pulled back some of those commissions, and they used to charge 30%. Now they're back down to like 10% or something like that. It's much, much smaller. They do still exist, but no one has them to the extent to which Apple has them. So let's go ahead and talk about this, saying that Apple is facing sudden public backlash from developers, large and small, against the tax it imposes on some in-app purchases. And by the way, many developers say that they, as much as they don't like to, they can't eat the cost themselves. So this 30% when it comes to apps, and that includes everything from app subscriptions, first-time purchases, things like that, in-app purchases. Yeah, you're looking at 15 to 30% on purchases made within the app. And then on top of that, the subscription and the purchase of the app itself is another 30% cut. They said that, and so they pass that on to the consumer. You're paying for this. This is your 30%. This week, a new Buzzy subscription email service. A new Buzzy subscription email service called Hey said Apple was trying to strong-arm it into integrating in-app purchases so it could get this commission. According to protocol, Hey, which comes from Basecamp and costs about $100 a year, doesn't let you subscribe or pay inside the iOS app. So I guess they have an iOS app that is free and a companion app to the service, but they don't actually do any kind of payment through Apple, which is why Apple contacted them and said, hey, we see what you're doing and we highly encourage you to do it this way. They said that while apps can offer users access to services or content they previously purchased, they cannot directly or indirectly target iOS users to use a purchasing method other than in-app purchase. The guidelines also say that apps can't offer access to new paid features within the app. They must offer in-app purchases. I guess what they're saying there is that, much like what they did, that language in the guidelines signals that you're not allowed to send iOS customers in particular to their website, pay for everything, and then just use the app as a companion app. Apple wants to make sure that they, any kind of free app that's on the store that is making money, they want to make sure that they get their cut. Even if, and I think it is, even if their cut is completely unreasonable in this day and age. So, the service's executives had thought the rule didn't apply to them because the app allows people to sign into something they already subscribe to, as is the case with Netflix, Slack, and other companies that everyone uses. So, they're saying there's no chance in heck that we're going to pay Apple's ransom. He said that I will burn this house down myself before I let gangsters like that spin it for spoils. This is profoundly, perversely abused and unfair. According to protocol, Apple enforced the rule because Hey is a consumer app rather than an enterprise app. There you go. So there you go. And, a little bit further down, they had an image of the email from Apple to this particular one. And they're saying, thank you for your time. Make sure, as we discussed, we have further escalated your apps to the app review board and have determined that the apps are not in compliance with the following rule. And they mentioned that you have to have an in-app purchase and not just direct people to elsewhere. So the response to that was, this is false and inconsistent. The Basecamp app has been in the App Store for years, offering access to a subscription bought elsewhere. The store is full of apps doing just that, even other email apps. And then they, of course, listed it. So they snitched. There you go. Not the biggest deal. So with that being said, let's see, the article goes on for a little bit, so we'll cut to the chase here. But essentially, they said that they had an analyst who on Twitter said on early Wednesday that he had received multiple emails from developers saying they had similar experiences. He suggested that this was a recent reinterpretation of Apple's policy. Now, with all that being said, the standoff between Apple and Hey happened as the European Union launched 2 antitrust investigations into Apple. And one of those antitrust investigations includes the 30% App Store levy. The EU investigation was set in motion in 2019, and it meant that Apple was giving its own service a leg up by artificially inflating Spotify's prices. So the initial one was that Apple has Apple Music. Spotify has Spotify's music streaming service. The fact that Apple distributes it on the App Store just like Spotify, but obviously Apple does not pay themselves the 30% royalty, then they are unfairly increasing the price of Spotify versus their own offering. This would be, this is antitrust territory. And also an ebook company made the same complaint because obviously they have to compete with the same thing with Apple having their own distribution sources for their books. Another app developer, Heavyweight, came out swinging against Apple on Tuesday. Match Group, which owns a host of popular dating apps including Tinder, OkCupid, Hinge, and a number of other, criticized the tax on in-app purchases. Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want a good chuckle, check out the Match Group. We've had them on the show. Very interesting people. There's the Jewish dating sites. There's farmersonly.com, things like that. There's OkCupid. There's so many others. There's Match.com. Match Group owns every single one of those. So you think that those are competing services, but no, especially the niche dating services, they're all owned by the same company. That's a little aside, but I always found that funny. So Apple is a partner, but also a dominant platform whose actions force the vast majority of consumers to pay more for third-party apps that Apple arbitrarily defines as digital services. Apple squeezes industries like ebooks, music and video streaming, cloud storage, and gaming for 30% of their revenue, which is all the more alarming when Apple enters the space, as we've repeatedly seen. And, that's something that not just Apple, but pretty much anyone who provides the service for others, that's what they do. That's take Uber, for instance. Whenever Uber had their ride-hailing services, but then they found out that people were also, delivering for other food delivery apps. Hey, what happened? Uber started their own food delivery competing business. They have the analytics to know what industries are increasing, and that they're going to get involved in those industries. So there you go. Now, they said that we welcome the opportunity to discuss this with Apple and create an equitable distribution of fees across the entire App Store, as well as with interested parties in the EU and the US. Apple did not immediately comment, but there you go. In my head, this is something that is long overdue because, back in the day, running these kinds of things, server costs, data costs, it was much more for a much smaller audience. The cost of everything has come down. Their audience, their user base has gone up exponentially. And really, on the whole, they know that this is their cash cow. They know that just by providing the Apple App Store, they are making a ton of money, and they don't want to give that up. The conundrum is that they don't want to give that up, but there's no competition. The other, if you have an iPhone, if you have the singular most dominant operating system for mobile, if you don't include all of the different versions of Android, kind of lumped together, but the largest single operating system for mobile, they have nowhere else to go. It's not like me with an iPhone can log into the Google App Store and start downloading Google Apps. No, it's only the iOS store or nothing else. So you have a captive audience. You have a company that just is dominant in the space. And yeah, they kind of write the rules, and they wrote them very favorably to themselves long, long ago. Now's probably a good time to revisit it, because they could take less. They could pass the savings on to the customers. Obviously, like I said before, that 30% that's coming out of in-app purchases and subscriptions, that 30% is not coming out of the company's share. That 30% is coming out of the consumer's pockets. So definitely worth looking into. I hope that they take a firmer stance, kind of like Steam did. Obviously, Steam was in a very similar position back in the day when it came to digital game sales. They had like 98% of all digital game sales at one point, and even they, reduced their fees down to 15% or 10%. It was one of those. I hope that Apple does the same. In my head, 15% for in-app purchases and things like that, and then maybe even drop it down to 10% for some of the more popular apps. That seems fair, because their costs have gone down. Like, overall overall they've gone up, but per person, that they've gone down. So I hope that they resolve this pretty quickly. So that's story number 2, Apple. Get with it. Story number 3, how about we talk about not that one. So, and by not that one, just so you all know, that was a story that happened back in 2016. I remember it fondly. That was when the CIA lost a treasure trove of its best hacks. If you don't know this, the U.S. government will either seek them out themselves, or if they find them in the wild, or if they can purchase them from third parties. The CIA was collecting zero-day vulnerabilities. So, things like that could get them into different services, things that could compromise systems. Instead of reporting them to, name any provider out there so that they could patch these security flaws, no, the CIA was collecting them personally and was saving them in kind of like a treasure chest, like a war chest, if they ever needed to gain access to someone's computer, phone, application, service, whatever. They were hoarding these things, and then their system was compromised and the whole thing was leaked. So, which isn't the worst thing, because obviously the all of the vulnerabilities were patched soon after. All of the different zero days that were unknown, suddenly became known, and everyone became safer for it. But obviously, it was not a good look for the CIA. So there you go. And by the way, the update to that was they're still asking questions. How did this happen? So on and so forth. And a renewed interest just happened from a senator today. So there you go. Let's see. Let's go ahead and continue on here. This one's fun. And as someone who had an N64, I had Pokémon Snap. Well, I didn't really have Pokémon Snap. I think that I had to rent that from Blockbuster. So take that as you will. Pokémon Snap, 21 years later. Has it been that long? Pokémon Snap is coming back on the Nintendo Switch. And I think this is awesome. So they said that no public release date has been announced yet for the new Pokémon Snap, which will be made by Bandai Namco. And yeah, saying that, Ars Technica here, saying that they don't often write about mere game announcements, but because they're done with so much frequency, but we'll make an exception for today's surprise announcement on Pokémon Snap is finally getting a Switch-based sequel. Over 20 years after the original became a cult classic on the Nintendo 64. So the announcement of new Pokémon Snap, if you want to give it a look, honestly, looks really, really good. They have a lot of polish to put on it. The animations are, kind of, kind of dated, but they're working on it. They said that it became known today when Pokemon's YouTube account posted the new video, and it was let on details but full of not final gameplay footage from a game under development, as the fine print disclaimers warned. What we can see of the gameplay in short should be familiar to those who enjoy the Nintendo 64 classic. So, using a first-person camera, obviously with a viewfinder, you take pictures of different Pokemon in different kinds of scenes in a fixed route, and you have very, very limited control over the speed and the direction of your cart, but that's the fun of it. That's the replayability, because you want to try to do better and better and better. Pokemon lures also make an appearance, letting players draw Pokemon out from hiding for better shots, and players will presumably be rated on their ability to frame and compose interesting shots, as in the original. So, Pokemon's large and small from throughout the series history feature in the trailer, confirming that there isn't a mere remaster, so it has different Pokemon than the original 151, but many, many others. I think that's just about it. So elsewhere in its presentation, the Pokemon Company announced that a themed toothbrushing app called Pokemon Smile, a tile matching game called Pokemon Cafe Mix, and upcoming DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Pokemon, the money printer. What are you going to do? But I'm really excited for the new Snap. I always enjoyed those games. And the only downside, if anyone played it as much as I did, and I mentioned Blockbuster a little bit ago, I remember that the Blockbuster that we went to had a particular booth machine that you could actually save your favorite Pokemon shots that you took from within the game, and you could plug in the cartridge into the machine, and it would allow you to print out little 1 inch by 1 inch stickers of your favorite scenes that you captured within the game. Little things like that. I don't know. Just you don't get a lot of physical memorabilia from video games nowadays. So I don't think that's going to make a comeback because obviously, Blockbuster is no more. But hey, at least Pokemon Snap will be here. So there you go. There's that story. Story number 4. Let's go ahead and continue on here. This will be a pretty big one. Facebook and politics. Not the most winning combination, especially if you are bombarded with political advertising, because now obviously the 2020 presidential election is heating up. More and more spending, millions upon millions of dollars will be spent this year trying to persuade you to vote for a particular person. Now, what if you don't want to be subject to that? Well, at least on Facebook, they're doing something that should have been done a long time ago, and that is you can actually now opt out. That's right, you can opt out of political advertising. So it won't prevent your family and friends from sharing articles with you and things like that, but it will at least keep the political ads off of your content feed. So Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg on Tuesday announced that the platform would allow users to turn off political ads. Everyone wants to see politicians held accountable for what they say, and I know many people want us to moderate and remove more of their content. For those of you who've already made up your minds and just want the election to be over, we hear you, so we're introducing the ability to turn off seeing political ads. We'll still remind you to vote, he said. So obviously just saying, go vote is very different than here's who to vote for. So yeah, I could totally see that. But yep, political advertising is going to now be a toggle feature. Users will be able to turn off the ads about political, social, and electoral issues from political candidates, super PACs, and other organizations that have a political disclaimer indicating an ad is paid for by a certain entity. Zuckerberg also announced that his op-ed article that Facebook would seek to boost voter registration, voter turnout, and marginalized voices ahead of the 2020 election. So there you go. Yeah, and hey, Tech Rob, how you doing? So yeah, this article, again, the main gist of it just seems to be that if you're fed up with politics, Facebook hears you, and they're going to try as best they can. This, of course, comes on the heels of a very contentious exchange between the president and social media sites. That this whole Article 230 thing and how they're thinking about revoking some of the protections given to them by Article 230 or by Section 230. So yeah, I mean, Facebook is in a rock and a hard place. Unfortunately, they've tried to play both sides of this to their benefit, and hopefully the users who really don't want to deal with this will have a way to tune it all out. And by the way, they said that the company removed 3.3 billion fake accounts in 2018 and 5.4 billion last year as of November. So Facebook has a real problem. I mean, there was just another article saying that Facebook and Reddit and Twitter, all three of those were sources of huge misinformation campaigns going back years. So don't just think that misinformation happens in a vacuum. It happens to other people, so on and so forth. Misinformation happens every single day, and sometimes it can be hard to spot, because they do get a lot of, a lot of visibility. Just because you see something on the internet does not make it true. So keep an eye out. So everyone, let's go ahead and continue on here. Story number 5. We can talk about this one real quick. It has to do with AT&T. And as much as we don't like to focus on the doom and gloom, AT&T has said that they are closing 250 additional stores and thousands of workers as well. So 3,400 technicians and clerical workers, along with managers and executives, and that is according to the Communications Workers of America Union. They said that the company confirmed it would make cuts, but didn't specify the number of jobs, saying that we'll be eliminating more non-payroll workers, the vast majority of which are outside the United States, than we are managers or union represented employees. There you go. Obviously, T-Mobile had something similar, where after the merger, they said that they would hire 5,000 additional workers, but yeah, usually after mergers, you don't hire more people. You usually lay off redundancies. So I expect no difference there. AT&T will close more than 250 locations, and Cricket Wireless, because I guess they're the same company, and around 1,300 retail staff will be affected, but AT&T will offer most of the employees other roles within the company. Although AT&T had already earmarked those stores for closure, it said the coronavirus pandemic sped them up. So there you go. Coronavirus making a little bit more change. There you go. So, yeah, just a quick announcement. There you go. There's that one, and let's see. Okay, this is some good news. Zoom. Very, very popular meeting app. Kind of a teleconference and video conferencing app, that kind of thing. Check this one out. I gotta say, Zoom gets called out on their lax policies, protections, privacy matters. Zoom gets called out. Don't get me wrong. they should have seen all those things coming, and they should still be very proactive in what it is that they do to protect their customers. But they also respond very quickly, and I gotta give them credit for that. So check this one out. Dan Gooden, Ars Technica, amid pressure, Zoom will end-to-end encrypt all calls, free or paid. So it's not even like, obviously, if you're a free user, they're going to route it differently. No, everything's going through the same end-to-end encrypted channels. So they said that under pressure from privacy and human rights advocates, Zoom said on Wednesday that it will make end-to-end encryption available to both paying and non-paying users of its video conference. Previously, Zoom said it would provide end-to-end encryption to paying customers and a less robust form of encryption known as transit encryption to non-paying customers. Zoom said that the two-tier offering would allow law enforcement to regulate illicit content from users who don't have accounts and are harder to track. So, little bit of a refresher. End-to-end encryption means that everything is completely encrypted from my computer to the person I'm calling's computer, and the only one that can access it is me. Transit, though, that means that the application receives the information, they encrypt it, they send it to the other application on the other user's device, and then they decrypt it, but it's still within the application itself. It's not... If the application, if let's say Zoom servers were somehow hacked or people were spying on it, or heaven forbid, the Chinese government were to request the information, Zoom could give that information, because while the contents of it were encrypted only for the transit, that means that Zoom itself still has the information, just everyone in between does not. Whereas end-to-end encryption, that means that it was encrypted via transit, so all the servers that it pinged from here to there don't have the information. And then on top of that, Zoom itself does not have the information because it's on the person's local machine. So there you go. Critics in privacy and human rights circles said that Zoom plans threatened to make privacy a premium feature rather than something that should be available by default. The critics called on Zoom to provide the same protection for all users, which, honestly, not that hard to do. The only reason that they wouldn't would be to give government bodies the ability to spy in on these calls. So the registration process is similar to those required by end-to-end messaging services, Signal and WhatsApp. Users of each service must provide that they have control of a valid phone number, and, they're combined with Zoom's measure designed to detect illicit behavior. And they said that the registration allowed his company to offer end-to-end encryption to all users and at the same time enforce safety on his platform. So, the article says what I just said a little bit earlier. End-to-end encryption is vastly different from simply encrypting data in transit. Instead, it provides each user with keys that reside solely on their devices, where the communications are encrypted and later decrypted. With the service provider having no access to the keys that decrypt the data, it's impossible for law enforcement to malicious insiders to access the human-readable content. So, end-to-end encryption is definitely preferable to just in transit. Just in transit, for those of you who don't know, it's still a legitimate way to send information that you're not too concerned about. But the only thing it protects you from is, let's say, someone were reading all of the data that was going through a particular server. If you had in-transit encryption, the person reading the data on the servers as it goes by, they wouldn't know what it is that they're looking at. So that's, there's still a legitimate use for that. Let's say within corporate entities where, the corporation itself needs to have constant access, but then you have something like a VPN that would, obviously in transit, be able to encrypt these things. So there you go. So he said that. So the CEO said that once end-to-end encryption is implemented, it will be an option that can be turned on because it limits some meeting functionality, such as the ability to connect by traditional phone lines or SIP H323 hardware. Hosts will be able to turn end-to-end encryption on or off on a per meeting basis, and the CEO said that the account administrators will be able to enable it by default on a group level. So there you go. Great move. Great move. I'm happy that they did it. Long time coming, and hey, should definitely happen. So there we go. Story number 6, story number 7, and yeah, we still have plenty of time to keep this going. Okay. Boston Dynamics. Every time we talk about them, we talk about their goofy robot dog, Spot. And Spot is very photogenic. He makes great videos, or it makes great videos. It's something definitely to look out for. So let's go ahead and play the video here in the background if you can see it there. Now, one thing that Spot had never done before, even though it had done backflips, it had walked upstairs, it had slipped on a banana peel, it had done so much that Spot can do. Now it's finally doing the one thing no one thought it could do. Leave the laboratory, and it is now an actual device that you can purchase and have ready to go. So, the robotics company Boston Dynamics, they are now selling Spot for a mere $74,500. I know what you're saying. Is that all? Yeah. $75,000, and you can have your own weird robotic dog that, would still need a lot of customization to probably do any kind of task that you need. Robotics company Boston Dynamics announced today that U.S. businesses can now purchase the Explorer version of its robot Spot at a cost of $75,000. This is the first time the company has made any of its robots available for sale, according to a press release put out by the company, and often referred to as Spot, the robot dog. The quadruped robot has been used to herd sheep in New Zealand, and even used in parks in Singapore to promote safe physical distancing during the coronavirus pandemic. Spot can also be seen walking around a park in Singapore using a built-in speaker to play pre-recorded messages. As reported in November, the Massachusetts State Police became the first law enforcement agency to test out Spot, using it as part of the police department's bomb squad. This prompted an inquiry by the Massachusetts branch of the ACLU, requested more information regarding its use. So, law enforcement already had their hands on it, and now it's open to individual businesses who can shell out $75,000 for a bot that, thinking of all of its different use cases that we've seen up until this point, the use case for this thing is probably going to be sentry/security. It's going to be able to patrol a particular route, and it's going to be able to, with its built-in cameras and sensors, identify someone, record video, play audio, things like that. Be remotely controlled, and be even, autonomous. They said that according to Boston Dynamics website, Spot's human-like mobility allows it to navigate terrain that is more difficult to navigate for wheeled or tracked robots. It can navigate constrained environments, which can cause difficulty for drones. Spot can be controlled by an out-of-box controller through an application programming interface, so pretty easy to control. Add-ons to Spot can be made with its purchase, including a premium service placed for $15,000 or an additional battery at a cost of $5,000. I'm just surprised they were actually able to get this thing out the door. It's come a long way. Now they need to judge what is the demand, what sectors is Spot going to be really effective in? Is it just law enforcement? Is it in security of property? What are its uses, and who's interested? And last but not least, who's actually going to pay for this thing? So, Um, when it comes to robotics, though, Boston Dynamics is one of the best robotics companies out there. So, no surprise that they're one of the first ones to bring it to market. Okay. The next story that we're going to talk about is the NBA. If you are a live sports fanatic, you're in luck. The NBA has been resumed. For those of you who don't know, I think it's happening in like Orlando. It's all happening in one location. And yeah, all of the players will be isolated in their hotels, and then they'll play the NBA conference as they normally would. Obviously, March Madness has come and gone, but NBA is going to trudge on. So while the NBA continues to move towards restarting its season with players and other personnel isolated at the Walt Disney World in Orlando, details of how it hopes to manage the people on site are leaking out. And here we go. This one article. If you can see the video screen, you can see the Oura smart ring. They're saying that the specifics were laid out in an informational memo dubbed "Life Inside the Bubble" that described testing plans, quarantine protocols, and more. So check this one out. This is actually pretty cool. They said that other than players only lounges with NBA 2K and bracelets that beep if people are within 6 feet of each other for too long, it has proposed the use of Oura's smart rings. Earlier this month, a study results from West Virginia suggested that the physiological data from the rings, combined with its digital platform, with information obtained from wearers via an app survey, can forecast and predict the symptoms of COVID by 90% before 3 days in advance. So there you go. The titanium second generation Oura rings are water resistant, weigh from 4 to 6 grams, depending on size, and can run for up to 7 days on a single charge. Once drained, they can power up on their wireless inductive charging plate for about 80 minutes, and then they're good to go again for another week. Otherwise, the rings are similar to larger fitness trackers and smart watches with infrared LEDs, 3 body temperature sensors, an accelerometer, and a gyroscope. The key to their design is that they are intended for wear 24/7 with up to 6 weeks of data stored on board that syncs to your iOS or Android phone via Bluetooth. So there you go. And you can see it here. It looks very sleek. Obviously, for the ring itself, you wouldn't really be able to tell that it was a fitness tracker on top of it. The use of the rings will be optional, and there's no word on what other data will be used to track possible symptoms. And the Players Union hasn't announced it's fully on board with it, but plans to appear to be in motion. And it's possible that if you're watching games played on the mostly empty arenas, some of the players will have a very familiar looking ring on them. It's pretty interesting. Obviously, within these kinds of tight groups, these particular employees, these athletes that are not going to be intermingling with everyday population, this approach makes a lot of sense. They can give up a measure of their privacy to make sure that they remain healthy and that the spread of this does not affect anyone within the organization. On a wider scale, I still feel like something like this would not work explicitly, but I'm glad that they're trying new things for sure. So the Oura Smart Ring 2, that is, you're going to be seeing some players wearing this. So there you go. The next story, and this one might actually be the end of our technology and news segment, but I wanted to talk about this kind of about coronavirus, but it has to do with iFixit. If you don't know about iFixit, they're a great publication. If you have any kind of problems, or if you need teardowns, if you need to fix an iPhone or something like that, iFixit does a lot of great work when it comes to taking apart everyday devices and not only seeing what they're made of, how they work, how they're put together, how to put them or how to take them apart, how to fix them. iFixit also, well, they do it for free. It's very impressive. So, with that being said, a little while ago, we talked about a medical device supplier. iFixit had released a bunch of schematics and teardowns on different ventilators because obviously with coronavirus going around, ventilators were at a premium and they did not want ventilators sitting around not saving lives. They wanted to make sure that as many of these things were online operational as they possibly could. So iFixit did teardowns and then for free released the schematics and how to repair them. That apparently set off a bit of a set off one of these companies that makes them, and they threatened them over the ventilator repair project. So let's see. So let's go ahead and dive into this. A popular website with a comprehensive database of repair manuals for ventilators and other medical devices has received a letter from a medical equipment company saying that its copyrights are being infringed. So the CEO of the company, of iFixit, which posts guides on how to repair anything from sewing machines to video game consoles to phones to ventilators, obviously, so much. I think iFixit even did like Tesla electric vehicles, so a lot. It was sent to him by Counsel for Stairs Corporation, which makes sterilization and other medical equipment. Saying, quote, "It has come to my attention that you have been reproducing certain installation and maintenance manuals relating to our product, which is protected by copyright law." The letter then went on to tell Wines to remove all Stairs copyrighted material from the iFixit website within 10 days of the letter. Now, as Motherboard reported in March, major manufacturers of medical devices have long made it difficult or dang near impossible to actually get these manuals to anyone other than a licensed, accredited, hand-chosen repair professional. So if you much like iPhones, much like any other technology nowadays, let's say John Deere tractors, for instance, they want to make, they want a tighter grip on repairing, supplying supplying parts to fix these things. They want a close, tight grip on how these things are fixed. Manufacturers have often lobbied against right to repair legislation, and many medical devices are controlled by artificial quote-unquote software locks that allow only those with authorization to make modifications. Even if it's something so simple, they won't let you do it. You have to, kind of go through these companies and these organizations to make even the smallest, slightest repair. So there you go. They have a quote here from the CEO of iFixit saying, "I'm disappointed that Stairs is resorting to legal threats to stop hospitals from having access to information about how to maintain critical sterilization equipment during a pandemic. No manufacturer should be stopping hospitals from repairing their own equipment. The best way to ensure patient safety is to make sure that the equipment is being maintained using the manufacturer's recommended procedures. The only way to do that is if hospitals have the up-to-date manual." This launches back into the entire idea of the right to repair, who really owns it. Obviously, these hospitals are paying, I've heard reports of anywhere from $20, $30, $40, $60,000 for these, for these ventilators. Why did these companies make it so hard to actually fix them or work on them or keep them working? So I feel like this information should have already been out there. And, if it was, then a service like iFixit wouldn't feel the need to publish this kind of thing. And if this information is already easily obtainable, then people wouldn't be going to iFixit to do this. They'd be going to the company's website. So they said that we explained to Stairs that what we did is lawful and protected fair use under the U.S. Copyright Act. iFixit is protected by Section 512 of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which allows online platforms to host content contributed by users, provided they comply with the Act's requirements, which iFixit does. So they did not respond for comments. The real reason that they don't want it up there, and the only thing I can imagine, is that they earn money off of people repairing them through their professionals or sending it back to they themselves, the company. It's cutting into the revenue. And I mean, that's not good. These companies do make a life-saving, essential product. And you want to make sure that they can still do what they do. But if they're earning their money by kind of holding these things hostage, that's not the right way to, I guess, kind of go about earning your revenue. Increase it in other places. Don't be devious about it. Being able to work on your own devices that you've already paid for should be a right. So there you go. Time for one, maybe two more stories if we can. Let's talk about electric cars here real quick. Lucid Motors. Haven't heard much from them, but now we have. Saying that Lucid Motors will reveal its all-electric Air sedan on September 9th. And by the way, it's Lucid Air. Air is the name of the sedan. They've announced that it will reveal the production version of the first all-electric luxury sedan, the Air, in an online event on September 9th. They apologized to their customers, saying that they have to wait a little bit longer because COVID-19 pandemic and everything got pushed back. Now everything's been pushed back to early 2021. So instead, Lucid Motors has spent time dangling bits of information about its progress with the Air as it worked up a plan for its own reveal event. And they said that they published photos of the factory, its building in Arizona, as well as released a video of the Air being put through its winter testing paces, as well as making a 400-mile trek between San Francisco and Los Angeles on a single charge. 400 miles on a single charge. Not half bad. Not half bad. Very impressive. So obviously Lucid Motors, they have been around since 2016. They made their debut. They followed in the footsteps of Tesla, saying that they wanted to make an attractive, consumer-ready electric vehicle that was a little bit more on the high end. And, they had their trouble, just like Faraday Future and so many other electric vehicle companies out there. The only reason that they continue to exist is because they've received a massive $1 billion lifeline from a Saudi Arabia public investment fund just weeks before the kingdom, just before the whole Jamal Khashoggi thing happened. So as Lucid's 1,000 plus employees return to work in a phased approach based on local and state mandates, they resume vehicle development work that was only briefly delayed during the shelter in place. So there you go. More jobs, more cars, more people, more competition. You love to see all of it. It's definitely great. Speaking of more competition, let's see, going from that to we're just flat out of time. And unfortunately, you won't be able to hear the music because of our technical errors a little bit ago. But check this one out. Some of the other stories that we didn't get to. Bose is calling it quits to its augmented reality platform. Well, it had like an audio augmented reality platform kind of mixed together. And do you know why it was closed? It's because you've never heard of it. I haven't either. I don't even understand why they did that in the first place. So, with that being said, 2018, they launched it at South by Southwest, and now they are officially closing it altogether. It's augmented reality is a cool technology, but maybe Bose wasn't the right company for it. Let's see. So from that, there's also Walmart testing a cashierless store. And on top of that, Lyft vows 100% of its vehicles will be electric vehicles by 2030. And you know what? I think that's about it. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America here. Thank you for checking us out. And I want to say, check us out tomorrow. If everything goes as planned, we should have the one, the only Mr. Marcel Gagne, our all Linux program tomorrow. It's always a lot of fun talking about Linux, different distributions, and of course, news and related events with the operating system. Everyone, tune in next time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Have a great one. Bye, everyone.